I'm both curator and producer. And I think it's an interesting situation for me because I can understand more things I would say about production process, and curatorial aspect. But for instance, in this exhibition, most of my work as a curator is, of course, to invite several artists, according to a specific theme, and also according to a specific architecture, because sometimes it's important, as I said before about dramaturgy, it's important also that you can't make an exhibition without excluding architecture. It's combined, and in that case, as a curator, I'm a bridge between artist and audience, but as a producer, I'm able to commission some of the project. I just say to an artist, I like your work. I would like to help you to do a project, so do you have any idea? And he proposed an idea, and if I like it, I'm very happy, I think it's difficult to force an artist, you can say, oh, please, I'm doing an exhibition about robotic art, could you do art of work using robots? I think some would say yes, or some are already doing it, but some other, they don't feel they should do it, or they have no real appetence for that, so it make no sense. So really my idea is always think about all this relation has to be organic, not artificial. And it's interesting to speak about artificiality, especially with robots, but I think the robot needs to be as far as possible from artificiality.
The intention was to take an iconic object and turn it into something organic. That was very much the intention. It's certainly not a transformer. The notion of it, being stuck with the comparison, it's okay because, society's reference is cinema on everything. And also society's reference to what we were talking about earlier is cinema. I mean, we're living this scientific age now that you only saw in these great films like Blade Runner, TV series Star Trek. All these things are what Google is aspiring for. Facebook, all of these giants are inspired by science fiction. It's directing our world. It is the direction of our world because they've got the power in their hands to direct it. I think the artist's role, if the artist had access to Google, which often they do, or these powerful giants to realize their visions, you're going to find those visions will be quite different. So back to the organic and the iconic object. My interest has always been in transforming states from my early performance works. I was always interested in taking my body to the next state that I could in a performative action. But it was a real, my early work evolved out of real situations, creating real live actions. Nothing preconceived, but just setting up these different factors and enacting a performance. And by the time the performance was over, something new happened to me that I had never experienced before. So when my practice went on to installation and just pure robotic sculpture, I felt it was important that the work would give each viewer something completely new and unique for each and every one of them. So some people take away a child, if they've only seen the Transformer series, they're like, oh, Transformer, but then it doesn't kill and it doesn't do this. And then my hope is that it turns their head a little bit and they say, this thing, instead of destroying all the other machines, it actually just grew into a plant. Or some connoisseur of the DS is like, wow, I wonder how fast this thing moves forward or back or what it does. And in fact, when they see it grow upwards, it's like, ooh la la, it's growing upwards. That's completely odd. And so it gives them an interesting reference from the takeoff of this car that is so respected and loved, and often difficult to work on. They have this iconic takeoff point, and then it goes somewhere else in their mind, nowhere that they imagined, mostly. And I'm very happy about that.
Weird, and that's how I started it. So it started from an emotion.
now there is a big mismatch about a big confusion between art and design. For me, it's very different, you know, and I see many pieces of art which for me is clearly just design, which is also nice. I'm not against design, so but there is not the same level. So I would say in that case, I could be named as a designer.
I guess if I would not have come from an artist family, I would have become a scientist. But now the scientist in me is expressed through the art. So
I feel like all the artists in the show have a role in sort of, they also look at technology because they're looking at society and how technology is influencing society.
In the case of the 3D water matrix, which is at this exhibition now, it's clear that we could just make the matrix itself, okay, 900 electrovalves, okay, and make a little program just to make fun with that, you know. But I think for me it's not artwork, you know. This is for me it's just a machine, you know, and the artwork has to be the content, and this has to be produced by artists. It's why I proposed to Shiro Takatani and Christian Partosh to work on this project, you know. So for me what is important is what's happening between the machine and the ground, you know. So all this constellation of drops, you know, or line of water, this is art. Many commissions I did, often, you know, when I show the first step of this commission, for instance, I think about a piece which is not in that exhibition, but it's very interesting because it's video, you know. When we show it the first time in Shanghai, people was amazed because it was 360 degrees, all in 3D, floating everywhere, so it was, you know, amazing. But I came to the engineer, I say, okay, here we have 5% of the work. And he was absolutely amazed because he said, oh, sorry, it was finished because the machine was here, you know, it was working, people enjoy it. I say, no, we still have many months or years of work to do an artwork with that, you know. Now we just check that it works and it's a good base, you know. Unfortunately, in media art, often we stay at the first step, always, you know. And for instance, with the 3D water matrix, I asked to Shiro Takatani and Christian Partosh because I know that this artist can go further, much further, than just make a demonstration of machine, you know. So this is absolutely not interesting. Maybe it's interesting for technicians, you know, but it makes a big difference when artists are involved in it. Because, for instance, most of the time, engineers, technicians, they will choose the easiest way, or even they will say the more elegant way, elegant for them, not elegant for the result, elegant in the way to build it, you know. And so they don't go further than their own imagination. And artists, in that case, are really, because they are somewhere not totally in the world of the engineering, you know, push them in a direction that we never think about. And this is why it's interesting to combine art and science. I think it's art get a lot from science, but also science get a lot from art. And often, I would say, many scientists, most of the most important, you know, have a sort of artistic behavior, or they have, and maybe this capacity of intuition, this artistic quality, make the difference with their other colleague. That's why maybe sometimes they are better.
My artistic inquiry looks at science and technology as a tool to create my work. Science is a really great method to look at the ways that things work in nature, in the way society functions. So I use that as inspiration to do my work. For the last 30 years I've been working in technology. I use robotics and mechanics to animate my ideas. And I collaborate with scientists and engineers and technicians to realize my visions. So I think I'm meshed into all of those at the same time.
Technically, what I do is what the people in Hollywood do in science fiction films, but I use the same technology for art. So what it is, it's a couple of computers, like 5 or 10 computers, and 3D software, and then I go out there in the real world and make real videos. I take the videos and I put visual effects into the videos. I extend the reality of the videos, it's quite a tricky job. So I have to simulate every aspect of real visuals. I have to simulate reflection, fog, shadows, motion blur, noise, the shaky hand camera move. Everything is simulated. So it takes about, you could say for a 20 second thing, like 2 weeks to a month.
So my role is to create something or conceive of something and try to bring it to life. And then the role of the engineers is to teach the machine, to build the brain, to teach those machines how to function in whatever situation we put them in.
That I use is not actually what's responsible for the content, the idea, the concept. So sometimes it can even misguide you working with advanced technology, but on the other hand I'm also a little conservative. It's like a painter with a brush and a canvas and some paint. What more do you want? If you have that, you can be, as a painter, you are happy for the rest of the life. And a little bit it's like what I feel like. I have my techniques, and now I have more ideas than I could execute in a million years with that.
I'm considering myself more as a producer and the curator. Artist, it's not me to say if I am, and I think there is already too much self-proclaimed artist. I don't want to add myself on the list. So I think I feel better in this role of curator and producer. But it's interesting to do both anyway, because it gives you I would say a more open mind when I'm producer to be curator, and when I'm curator to be producer, So I think for me it's very interesting to have both job. I would say both tasks of both pleasure. The situation we were in Shanghai in one of the exhibitions I was doing with, it was a piece by Jean-Michel Bruyère, who is artist who is doing the 21 beds installation. It was a 3D 360 degrees installation, and it was the first step, and people enjoy a lot. People were absolutely amazed. Of course, you see a floating image everywhere, all around you, So, and right after the premiere, we go to the engineer, the software engineer, and we say, okay, good job, So now we have about 5% of the piece. And he was looking at us like, come on, for him it was finished because basically the NTFS was working, people were happy, and we say, oh no, here we are just to prove that we are in a good direction. So and after that he worked many versions, and I think now we are maybe at the 8th version. And now when we ask him to work more, he doesn't ask anything because he has seen the difference between what was supposed to be the final work, and it was for us only the first step, and now he's totally convinced about our point of view.
I think when you're involved in making sculpture, this is really a sculpture using technology. So I prototyped this very small, and I was very interested in having this car change shape and break apart into something geometric, organic, and finally, as if it was a growing plant, something that was really growing. And in that process, a lot of things happened. I mean, I had to find a team of engineers who could calculate how to make this thing work and keep it safe. And so they deemed it an impossible task at first. I persevered on, and we kept trying, and we got this thing to work. And so finally, we were able to create this thing very well engineered to last a long time, to do multiple cycles. But the important thing was, how do we keep this thing when it's in constant motion, always doing something new and unique? So for me, as a sculptor, every view of the sculpture, it's very important that it's actually working, physically working, conceptually working, and aesthetically working. So I only had the ability to work in a very finite model in drawings, and then ultimately it's sort of like, how do you refine something so massive, so big, and still keep it appealing, So a lot of what we did was using the computer technology in CAD to actually try to visualize it, but a lot of it was done with very small models.
900 nozzles on the ceiling. So those each nozzle can control the 1 millisecond. I don't know how long I need to open it for making the one drop. So we started like that. It's a first step is we must calculate how much open is I can create the drops or not. And then next step is I made a computer graphics. And next is I bring in the programmer and then creating those shapes and then.
That I'm exhibiting here is called the experience of Fliehkraft. Fliehkraft is a German word. It means centrifugal force, and it's a series of 7 little video loops and 7 construction plans of amusement park rides, carousels, which do not exist. So it's a series of 7 little video loops and 7 construction plans of amusement park rides, carousels, but they do not exist. Nothing of it is real. So it looks real, it looks like a documentary, but it's physically impossible. It's made with computer animation and computer graphics, and it's completely out of my fantasy. And what it is a metaphor for the human desire to expand and advance to faster, bigger, higher goals, wherever they are. And also what it expresses is that we never arrive. So it always goes on, which is one extra video of 7-minute duration, which shows the backgrounds behind the project. But also this documentary is not true. So nothing of it is true. So that the project itself does not exist, and the documentary about the project is also a lie. So it's all a lie. And if you look and listen closely, you find, well, what it does is basically most of what it says is
when I'm on the airplane with 300 people and I'm sitting in that seat with my notebook. You know, that's the moments that actually are the most exciting. You know, it's just like, you know, just me and the notebook. Me and the notebook are thinking about, you know, how can that joint work pneumatically? And I'm like, you know, something happens and you write it down or you try to describe it with your notebook. And sometimes the notebook isn't the notebook, in that case, sometimes isn't the way to ultimately find the idea, but it triggers something that sends you on the adventure to find that idea.
Say it starts from a dream. I would say it starts from an emotion, from an atmosphere. So I have an image in my mind. I'm looking for the impressions that move me most, where I know it tickles something inside of me, where I know, okay, this is something I want to explore.
3D water matrix takes almost 14 years. So the idea was to have to display letter, but thick letter, you know, going down, you know, and we could have a text, you know, going down like that. So it was a good idea. So I make some research, you know, and unfortunately the technology at this time was not ready for this concept, and I have to wait. And in 2003, I was looking to the prototype of Totemobile by Chico MacMurtrie in the auto fair in Paris. You know, it was the first time I was going to the auto fair, and I see the piece by Chico, but also I see a water advertisement by Jeep, you know, and when I see it was totally ridiculous, just Jeep going down, going Jeep, you know. But when I look to the system, well, this is something that could be used. I think I contact these people from Madrid who make this water curtain with MIT, because it was a collaboration with MIT. And I say, okay, now I would be interested to not do just a water curtain, but to work on a matrix, so to work on a 3D water matrix. So it's why we call it the 3D water matrix. And after some research, we discover that we need a minimum of 900 valves to do something interesting. And on this side, the first artist I contact to do the content was Shiro Takatani, of course. You know. So this is a story, but it's interesting that this happens often in science and art. Sometimes you have the concept, but you don't have the tools to prove the concept.
For example, for this work, I have the image, just waterfall and controlling the nozzles, and then some characters or some shapes falling down, or those image is coming up, and then asking to the technician, and then they realize this machine. After that, I bring my programmer with a machine, and then we try out a lot. So during those tests, we found those effects, the layer of the water drops grid, or those things, it's coming out later.
Well, when I was a teenager, I was interested by molecular biology. So this was and I was preparing myself to go in that way. And but when I discover that from I would say from the life point of view, it will be not that glamorous, because or you are a researcher in the public institution, and you spend all your time to find money to do some experience, you know, or you go to the commercial, you do a commercial company, or you go inside a commercial company and you are cracking molecule to make anything like from medical or anything else, you know. So it was not really, as I said, it was not really sexy, not glamorous, you know. And at this time, I was composing music, mainly tape music, and with some instrument, and I have more pleasure with that. And so I decided to help my production to be a producer of other artists too. So basically, I came by the electronic music or tape music, and from that, step by step, I began to work with music and later theater and dance and new media and yeah. So year after years, you know, I aggregate, you know, several straight of layer of discipline, you know.
Studied media design at the University of Applied Sciences in Mainz. Mainz is a smaller German city near Frankfurt, and it's my hometown also, where I grew up. And it's not film and it's not art. It's more media in a wide range, like functional design, communicative design, and you get a bit of everything basically. So it was the perfect thing for me to study. Or I started when I was like 14, 15, 16 years old to play with the computer in a creative way. So to use visual software, audio software, etc. So it started playing around, and I was so fascinated with visual effects from Hollywood, you could say, that I learned how to do them. And now I'm using this technique that usually, if you know how to do the stuff that I do, usually you go to Hollywood or to somewhere and you earn a lot of money. And I do the same thing. I take this technique, but I do art with it. And that's the that's what gives me a certain place in the art world that not many or a possibility that not many artists have, because usually these skills are not used for art. Sometimes it's a bit insane to use them for art, because it's harder to make a living with art than with making big movies. But that's what I love. I love to take a workflow, a technology from one industry, but use it for something else. Abuse it in a way. So, and I think in many examples in art that brings the most exciting results. I call myself an artist, a designer, and a filmmaker, because it's difficult to put it into one box. But what happened is I grew up in an artist family. So my parents are artists, my brother is an artist. So from when I was little, I started to play with cameras to make stop-motion films, etc. Then I discovered the computer, the digital art, and then I did everything with the computer that you can do, from like music, visuals, architecture, etc. And so I don't like to limit myself in any way. What's interesting is that the different markets are limiting me sometimes. So that the art market is completely different from the film market, for example. So that's about this project, which is exhibited here. The interesting thing is that the 7 construction points and the 7 video loops are working in galleries and museums, and the documentary works on film festivals, which is 2 completely different worlds. So the project lives in different worlds, in the art world and in the film world.
So I came into robotics through the fact that I painted my body with latex and with paint, and I shed skins from my body. Those shedding skins actually became mechanical puppets that I would perform with, that slowly grew into the machines that I built over the last several years. So that was the actual process. And so I came to it from my body. And it's interesting because when I teach kids robot building, their reference is what they've experienced in their bodies. So they can always make a robot that references what they know in life, which is very little. So it's very pure, very simple, it's very direct. So I think that's the beauty of the artists working in this medium, is that you can take a very pure approach to building something, where an engineer would really need to absolutely plan it out to the point where they would never do certain things. They would never take on certain things because it's way too much. It's not feasible. It doesn't seem practical. Artists don't do practical things.
it's about where do we expand? Where do we want to go? Why always advance with never stopping to set the goals higher? Where does this bring us? So yeah, but of course it's futuristic, but it's a little retro futuristic. It's futuristic from the point of view of the 80s maybe. I think because now we're in an age where virtualization becomes bigger and bigger. So the physical form of entertainment to be like spinned around by a huge robot, like in my visions, is something from the past. Because in the future, it seems like more and more is going to happen in virtual environments. It's going to be more in our heads and in our eyes, and not so much with our bodies. Maybe it's all wrong. Maybe, but that's the impression. So maybe it's also a bit of a future romantic. What could have happened to the world if it wouldn't have gone virtual?
I look at how technology functions, and I'm interested in on how technology and robotics in particular is taking on human movement. So for 30 years I've been looking at that myself, and I haven't had access to the kind of technology that's available today. The access for the artist has changed tremendously. So today I could complete works that I conceived 10, 15 years ago because the access to technology has changed, or the access to engineers who might want to work with me at this point in time where they might not have before. So I think for me, I'll continue to use technology in my creative practice because it's always been an inspiration and a fear.